Today, we are going to be talking about our website SOP. So everything related to building websites, standard operating procedure in the business. And we're just going to be breaking down like how it's done, and I'm going to be taking questions along the way. Please feel free to interrupt. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun because this websites, as a lot of you know, easy, right? Easy cash flow, easy to fulfill, especially if you systemize it. Is anybody doing websites right now? Like already, who's gotten at least one website sale under their belt? Let me know in the chat. Let me pull my chat up here.
40,
Norm with the 40 and more every day, right, Norm? Love it, man.
Yeah, I've done about 5 so far.
Nice. Anybody else? I see we still have some people kind of trickling in. Okay, cool. We've probably sold in our agency over the last couple of weeks, probably like, I don't know, I think 5 or 6 websites, and they're all usually, so the base website that we sell is $3,500, right? And it goes up from there. I started out originally selling $500 websites, which a lot of the, people that have home services jackpot and are familiar with that model, that's kind of like the entry level price point that I do and did offer websites, and still recommend people that are brand new to doing. But as you get better, as you hone your skills, you practice, you learn more of the language, you work well with your team doing the delivery, you're just going to start to want to naturally charge more, right? And so that's how I've grown into $3,500 as a minimum website. I think, we've sold a couple $8,000 websites over the last couple of days, a couple $6,000. And so, the price can vary depending on what they're looking for. But the process is always the same, right? The process is always the same, which is what we're going to be able to talk about today, because we've productized the website development. It's a product, right? It's not really a service anymore. It's always the same. So when you can productize something, that's really when you can scale. If you have a product that's unique to every single person, then it's very difficult to scale, right? But for the most part, websites are a product for us because we have a framework. And the only thing that's really unique is like the content, the images, and maybe they have some preferences, but the delivery for us is very productized, I guess, is what I'm trying to explain. So we're gonna dive into that. Marlene says that she's sold 3 websites, which, Marlene, I think, have all of those been since you've been a remote millionaire over the last couple months? She might not have audio. I know she usually tunes in with text. So let me know if that is. And yes, it is. Congrats. That's awesome. Nice. Okay, cool. Does anybody have any questions before we dive in? Good. Awesome. Let's do it. So let me pull up my SOP here. By the way, all of you have your SOPs in the members area. I know we have some new remote millionaires here with us today as well. So if you haven't seen them in your members area, you can always go back there. I actually have, just so you know, this is what the SOPs look like on my end for me and our agency. So we have a Google Drive folder, which all of you have access to, right? And so we have PDF version and a Word version. And we did that by request. But basically, these are all our core SOPs, right? These are updated in real time. So we're always making new ones. We're always updating these ones. And whenever you come to this Google Drive folder and you access these different SOPs, you're always getting the most fresh and relevant version, right? Or any new SOPs that are there. So yeah, for those of you that are new to Remote Millionaires, just wanted to kind of give you that visibility of how we update these things and how we keep them fresh and relevant. And so, cool. So the SOP for websites is really, like I said, productized, right? And the way that we lay this one out is, what we're doing. Obviously, this is, for somebody that is just coming into the business, a new developer, a new project manager, a new person that isn't really an assistant, right? What are we doing? We're building a website. So we have the process, right? We do a mock-up first. We then create the website. We do an initial round of edits, and then we do a final round of edits. And then we migrate the website to the client server. Now, sometimes we skip the mock-up. We don't even do the mock-up process. And that's usually for the bigger, more expensive websites. Usually when we do a mock-up, it's because we want to make sure that we're getting things right before we actually spend all of the time building the website. So the mock-up can be a little way to manage the risk there in this process. And usually with those more expensive websites, there's just a little bit more expectation. So when we build a mock-up too, it makes the perceived value of the person on the other end, they like it, right? They immediately, because a mock-up can be done pretty quick. And so when you send that over and you go over it with them, they really feel like they're getting a great product, right? And a great service. And it's very little to do a mock-up on our part, but it's a huge benefit to them. And, just a great way to build rapport, establish a good relationship, let them know that if they bought this $8,000 website, they made the right decision very early on in the actual process. Because sometimes a website can take a few weeks to build, but if you have the mock-up pretty quickly, it really counteracts like buyer's remorse and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the process for us: mock-up, creation, initial and final round of websites, and then migration. And so why are we doing it? These are clients that come to us looking for help because they need a new website. So for us, a lot of our website clients come through our outbound prospecting, right? We do every day we have somebody reaching out using our Loom video strategy, our remote prospecting strategy. We also have paid ad funnels that bring leads in. And then, we're sending emails to our past customers as well. And then we also have a fourth way of clients coming in right now, which is our search engine optimization, right? People just find us organically because we're ranking for Maui web design. So if you haven't really done any SEO on your own website for those types of terms, it's definitely something to consider. It's takes time to get those rankings, but eventually it's nice to actually have some leads coming in by just organic ranking. So that is something that I would suggest that you do. And a lot of you that have been here the last couple of weeks, we've gone over the SEO SOPs. We've talked about just implementing those checklists and SOPs for your own website is a great place to start. And that's all we're talking about doing. Putting out content on your website, generating some guest posts, some backlinks, doing good on-page SEO to your website, and you should start to see some rankings. So it's not that difficult, especially if you have our SOPs and our framework. So the thing that I really love about websites, and I think is overlooked by a lot of people, is websites are always a great foot in the door, because once you build a website for somebody, the next logical step is to send traffic and sales and customers to that website, right? So if you build a website for somebody, the next phase is very easy to lay out for them and very simple and basic to convince them to do. And so that's why we haven't given up on websites. I really like them. I know a lot of people don't like them. And the reason is because they don't like personally building the websites. But I haven't built a website in years. I don't know, a long time, like many years, like 3 or 4 years at least. And so if you're not building them, you have a team that's building them for you, which all of you should, then it's not a big deal, right? It's not a very big deal at all, because there are a lot of people that like building websites. And I used to actually like building websites, but then I realized that it takes a lot of time and my time is more valuable somewhere else. And that's why I phased myself out. And so that's why I encourage people to keep building websites though, because there's always going to be a big need for it, right? And I talk about this a lot, websites over time, they're kind of a perishable good, right? Kind of like vegetables, right? Over time, they go rotten, they get old, you have to throw them away, you have to get new ones. And that's like, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but like I buy the huge thing of salad from Costco all the time and I only end up eating like this much and I have to throw it away. And that's the same thing with websites. Like over time, they get old, they get stale, the technology changes, things break, they need to be updated. And so for us as marketers, there's always going to be an opportunity to help people fix their website, right? Fix the things that are broken. Come in and make a new one. If you build one, like 4 years later, you're probably going to be able to build another one for that same person, if not updated a few times in the process, you know? And so there's always going to be a big need for it, which is why if you can master outsourcing this and use it as your foot in the door to bring people up to a point of paying you monthly to drive traffic or sales or leads to that website, you're going to have no problem getting into some nice passive income. So let's talk about the process a little more. Does anybody have any questions yet? No? Let me pull up my chat here. Norm says he added this to Asana to create a CSV that members can upload to their. Oh, thank you, Norm. Appreciate that. Okay, so prerequisite: after the sales call, make sure the onboarding process is complete, the agreement is signed, initial invoice is collected, access granted to all of the assets, and there's kind of a lot to unpack there. So let's talk about that. So in the sales process, somebody comes in, you know, wherever the lead comes from, whether it's outbound or inbound, and we close them on the website. So nothing happens until they actually pay the invoice, right? We don't ever start building a website or doing any of that stuff until the invoice is actually paid. And that's because back in the day, I used to get excited and just start working, and people back out, you know? So hopefully you can get the invoice paid or collect a check in person, or if you're on the phone, you can collect their card on the phone, and you can make all that happen then and there, and you don't have to wait. I like to use Square for my websites because I can send invoices, right? And there's a nice feature with the Square invoice where you can actually send a reminder. Anybody know that? Did you know that you can send a reminder and you can actually see if somebody's viewed the invoice? So when you've sold somebody, they haven't paid yet, and you send the invoice and they haven't paid the invoice, I mean, you kind of feel like, well, I want to start this project. I want to collect the money. Obviously, I want to get going. I wonder why they haven't paid the invoice yet. But if you send a Square reminder like, hey, this invoice is due to them, it comes from Square. It doesn't come from you. So it doesn't seem like you are personally nagging them, right? So I like to send those reminders from the Square brand so it doesn't feel like they come from me. And that's just a nice little hack that you can use to bring some more attention to get your invoice paid. So once that happens, for us, if I do a sale and I bring somebody in, or somebody on our sales team does a sale or brings somebody in, or my assistant, the next thing she does, collects the invoice, gets it paid. The next thing she does is she sends an email to the client, and also will include CC our project manager on that project, and say, hey, client, glad that you just signed up, looking forward to do great with this project. I have Adriana here. She's our project manager as well. She's going to be communicating with you a little bit more about your website. And so from that point, the project manager will send the website agreement that we send for them to sign. Sometimes she'll be the one to actually send the invoice, right? And then she will ask that client for the specific things that we need in order to build the website. She will ask them for the access to their hosting account, access to their domain, and to make sure to send us any images in a Google Drive or a Dropbox folder, or a document with all the content that we're going to use for the website if they have it. If not, then we will charge them more to have somebody write content for them. And so it's very important that we gain access to all this stuff as soon as we possibly can, because there are two things that usually hold up website projects, and that is images from the client and written content from the client. And so what I like to do to kind of combat that is, number one, ask them for those things up front and right away. And if they don't have them, what I will do is I will use placeholder content and placeholder images to actually design the mockup or design the site. And that way we can actually start building the project, right? Our outsourcer can already start working. And then when we get to the edit phase, or maybe the images or the content come in along the process, we're able to just switch out the images. We're able to switch out the content. It's already there because it's been mapped out with placeholder stuff, and it's easy to do it that way. And it keeps the project rolling forward because, oftentimes when people need a website, they don't have the images yet. They have to have a photographer come in and shoot some photos of their business, or they're going to do it themselves, or they're going to write the written content. So it's going to take a little time. You're going to find that people usually don't show up to a website deal saying, I have everything, I'm ready to go. It does happen, but it's more of a rarity. And so if you have these ways to overcome these obstacles and keep the project going, you're gonna find that you have a short timeline from beginning to end because you're able to keep the process moving forward, right? So that's what we do. I highly recommend you use like Google Drive or Dropbox and just send your clients a link and say, hey, put all the images in this folder and we'll do the rest. Put all the content in this folder, we'll do the rest. So that's the beginning, right? Invoice, and then project manager welcome email, who will do the onboarding with the collection of assets, any credentials that we need to access the hosting and the website, the existing website, maybe that might be a thing, right? They might have an existing website that we are going to pull content and images from and use on our website. So we want to ask for all these things. And for those of you that are looking to have a project manager help you with this stuff like I do, this is the SOP that she uses, right? This is exactly what she does when we onboard somebody. And so if you are hiring a project manager, what you would be doing is you would giving this SOP to them and you'd say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to start doing website design projects. This is the process. And here's what I need you to do. I need you to take care of the prerequisite portion. And then you can make sure to give her access to the various things that she needs access in order to do this. Google Drive, your Square account. If she's going to send the invoices, then she needs access to that. If she's going to need to collect the images, then she's going to need access to the environment to save all that stuff. And so, yeah, it's funny because before I did this, before I had a project manager and somebody helping me do this, I had a lot of questions as to how all this would happen. And it actually was just a mental block. Like I couldn't see myself getting past this point of doing all these things myself, because I used to do all these things myself, but I didn't have a vision of a clear picture of what it looked like to ask somebody else to do it. And it became so easy once it was defined in this standard operating procedure, right? Because everybody knows what they need to do, where we are in the process, and there's no questions. It's one of the reasons why I was traveling for an entire year and haven't built a website myself, haven't, collected any of the assets from the clients or any of that stuff. It's because this very tool right here that we have here. So I'd like to pause there real quick and just make sure if anybody has any questions yet or anything like that, we jump in, we chime in. We doing good, Bill? Awesome.
Yeah, doing good. Thank you.
Okay. Lucy and Dorn. Who do we have here? Is it Lucy or Dorn? Or are you both here? Oh, okay, cool. You had a website that is Flash based. Man, that's older than me. Flash is older than me. That's funny. Okay, cool. So let's jump into the mock-up portion. So and before we do that, this is kind of something I didn't really think about. I want to show you how I have my file structure for my clients, right? So what I use is Google Drive for my company. And you can see I have a shared drive, right? And I have these folders, because my company's pretty big. This is kind of the advanced level. You don't need all these folders. You might start off with one Google Drive folder. But for me, all of my client folders are in my project management folder. So these 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 folders are the only ones related to my agency, right? All these are, sure.
It's not on, you're not showing it on screen.
I'm not?
I see it.
You see it, right, Norm? These are, you don't see this window here?
We don't see your folders, no.
I have them highlighted.
All it's shown is your website, SOP breakdown.
Really? That's weird. Hold on. How about now? No?
Nope.
All right, let's do this.
It's just
Are you
black on
sharing
one side.
the PDF app or are you sharing your screen?
I'm Dorn, don't correct me, dude.
I'm just trying to help.
How about now?
Yep.
You see him?
Yep.
Okay. So these are my five folders for my agency. The project management folder, all of our project managers and salespeople have access to the project management folder. We have these 5 subfolders, right? SOPs, sales, marketing. You can guess what goes into each one. But we have our client folders here as well. So anytime we get a new client, we will create a new folder in this Google Drive. This is a Google Drive folder. I'm using the Google Drive app to sync it to my actual desktop here. But some of you might be using, just go to Chrome and use Google Drive there. But this is the same thing, right? It's all synced up. And so what I would encourage you to do is when you get a new client, create a folder for them in your Google Drive, which is central to you and your team, and then share this Google Drive link to their folder to the client and say, hey, put all your assets in there, put the images in there for your website, put the content in there, any logo files you have, put that in there so that we have access to it. And then we can just share this folder with our developer, right? So it's easy to share information if you have it all centralized. So I use Google Drive for this. It's very easy to do. And then these are all of our ongoing clients right now. You can see everything from here down. These are active ongoing clients. And then these are clients, this one folder are clients that are not active. So you can see all these clients here. So we got a lot of clients, right? All this stuff I'm sharing with you, you see how many websites we've built. This is all from, building this many websites or doing this many marketing campaigns. And, it's the information I'm sharing you is a reflection of the experience through that. So let me jump back over to my SOP real quick. I have a video that goes into more detail on how I set up the folder structure. If any of you would like to get access to that later, I can pull up a link and I'll share it with Celia and Kai and they can share it to you later. So the mock-up process, right? If client completes the onboarding process and asks for details regarding the new website, these are all the things, all the collection logo files that I've already kind of gone over. We ask for any of this information. Usually whenever a website client comes in, we have them fill out the discovery form on our website at the beginning of the process. This allows us to kind of collect information on the actual project, like what type of website they're looking for. It asks very important questions that we give to the developer because it helps them map out what type of build that they're going to have. So all of you should have, and I should have mentioned this in the beginning, and I apologize. I did kind of a poor job jumping ahead there. But all of you should have discovery pages, right? I know Dorn was talking about building out some new discovery pages on his website yesterday. But this website discovery page, these are all questions that we ask about the actual build that we're going to be doing. And if you fill this out and you hit next, there are more questions. One of the important questions is like, give us 3 examples of websites that you like. And then there's another one that's give us 3 examples of websites that you don't like. So those responses are really going to help your developer in their process of what they're going to be building, right? And usually, if you have a good developer, you can send them the examples and say, hey, we want to build a website for this new client, and we want to have it follow these 2 or 3 examples. or here are the main elements of these two websites that we like. We want to use those types of elements, and then we want to use the other ones from the other site. So you can have kind of a Frankenstein website, right? Different elements from different examples that make one custom website. And so these websites that I'm talking about too, by the way, everybody, these are the more expensive ones that you should be selling. The ones that are more hands-on, that take a little bit more work, that are a little bit more customized. The stuff that is in Home Services Jackpot, or that you sell using the pre-built stuff in your Remote Millionaire software suite, those are all like $500 websites, $1,000 type website builds. These are the ones that people pay $8,000 for. So they're a little bit more custom, but this is the process. And again, if you're using an outsourcer, it's not a lot more work to you. It's just important that you have this data collection at the beginning, you know what the project looks like, and you know what you're going to be delivering on. So the prerequisite all happens. We collect all this information. And then once we have all that, we will send a message to our developer who's in our Slack channel, right? And we'll say, hey, we have a new website project. Here's all the information. How much is it going to cost? And for us, we already know that our web developer usually charges around $500 for a basic 5-page website. So, if we've upsold to 3,500 or 5,000 or 8,000, it might be a little bit bigger of a website. He might have a different quote, but generally it's usually about the same. And so only at this stage of the game, do we actually engage our web developer and our outsourcer. And so let me show you what that kind of looks like. Let's see if I can just find one here for you. So this is my Slack channel, right? My Slack workspace with my agency. And I have channels for each of the different departments, right? You can see on the left here, we have these channels. Admin, AdWords, Nirav, Adriana, and Elle. This is a web development channel. And so you can see Adriana, my project manager, Elle, my assistant. If I'm just scrolling up here, you can see the team working together to build these different websites right now. And I'm just trying to find an example of one where we message them saying, hey, we have a new client. One second here. Yeah, there's a lot of text here. So the team has been pretty busy. So basically, whenever we have a new project, all we have to do, project managers comes in this channel and says, hey, Nirav, we have a new project. This is what we're looking at doing. What's the timeline and what's your price point? And really that's a great example of us just being the middleman in the process, right? So we charge the client a fee. We take a portion of that fee and pay our outsourcer. And then the project manager is literally the go-between between the web developer and the client. So that's how all the interactions are going to continue to happen. And for those of you that are trying to phase yourself out of your business, this is an example of you working on the business and not in the business. If you're working in the business, then you're more a project manager. If you're working on the business, then your team is telling you like, hey, this project is done. What should we sell them next? Stuff like that. So you're making more decisions rather than actually doing. So the mock-up is usually done in Photoshop, right? If you have a good web developer, what they will do is create a mock-up, and then you can send it over to the client, say, hey, the mock-up is done. Let us know what you think. If you have any changes, let us know now, and we can make them before we actually start coding the website, which will be a lot less work. And usually we get our mock-ups right pretty quickly. Like there's never really very rarely do we have somebody say like, I don't like this at all. Like, let's start over. Let's scrap this idea. And the reason is because if you use the discovery form to collect information and you have a really good idea of what they're looking for, but if you're just trying to guess what they're looking for, then you're setting yourself up for trouble. You want them to tell you the examples of the websites that that they want, because that's, you know, that's what they're looking for. You don't want to build something that you think would be good for them. I can, if I'm being completely honest with you, we've built hundreds of websites that I thought weren't that good. And the reason is because they wanted them to be that way, you know, and sometimes you don't want to fight the client. Like, they know what they want sometimes, and you have to just do that. So it's our job to just consult in that situation. Like, if somebody has an idea or design that they want to do and it's crappy, I'll make a recommendation and say, hey, I probably wouldn't do this. We should do this. And they're like, no, I want it that way. I'm like, okay, let's do it that way. Like, I don't fight any of that stuff. There's no need to, you know, it's because they want what they want. And if they're looking for your expert opinion, then you can give it to them. Or if they ask, you can give it to them. But other than that, you don't really need to push the subject. So that being said, we've built a lot of websites that I'm not particularly fond of, but our clients love. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, is having a happy client. And if you don't actually like that project, then maybe don't put it on your portfolio, right? Don't use it on your website. Don't put your brand tag at the bottom of the website. Just kind of let it go. So has anybody had that happen where they built a website that they weren't particularly fond of, but their client absolutely loved it?
Lots.
Lots, Norm?
Lots. Yeah, lots.
Yeah. Have you ever run into it where you're like trying to convince them otherwise, but they're just not hearing it?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens a lot.
I have an example. I won't share it, but I have an example of one that I sold. If you remember, I just sold it. They wanted to duplicate it somewhere on their own, and I sold it to them for $2,000. Even though it was an ugly website. Like, I was holding it, maintaining it, and then I sold it to them. But it was a really ugly website.
Yeah. And I mean, did you give them a little bit of feedback at least? You're like, you're sure you want this?
Yep. I
And they
said,
were like, yep. And you're like,
colors,
okay.
all these buttons everywhere, all this content, people aren't going to read it, but they didn't care. So I
Yeah.
did it how they wanted it. They paid me, but they didn't really get any goals out of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you know, they want what they want. So I just think that that's kind of, it's funny. Like, sometimes I remember back in the day, early on, I would share the different projects that we built. I'd send a website to, or I'd use a website as an example to sell another client, right? I'd say, we've built websites like you're looking for. Here's a couple examples. And I would have to preface it. I'd be like, keep in mind, this is the design the client wanted. This isn't our own custom design. This is what they wanted, and we built it for them. I would have made it look a little differently, but this is what we want. But here are the things that relate to you, you know? So I found myself in that situation a lot, just kind of giving the preface that, you know, this was their design. Cool. So the mockup process, I've explained that. Once the mockup is complete, you are going to share it with the client and ask for feedback, implement any edits necessary to proceed to the next step. After the client approves final version of mockup, then we will transition the mockup to an actual WordPress website or Squarespace or Shopify or whatever they're looking for, right? So in order to do that, we usually create a subdomain on our development server. So, you know, our developers all have access to this. So they will just create a subdomain for us. So I think our subdomain right now is, I think it's SEO Maui. I think it's SEO Maui. Let me see. And sometimes your developers might have their own development site, which they can use. And I mean, I'm fine with that too. I think our developer here has his own, and it's called, oh, here it is, creative staging, right? So this is an example of a website being built on a development server. So this is his domain, creative staging. This is the website that we're building, right? So we're building this website for him right now. First time I'm even seeing this website, and it's on a giant screen, so it looks a little weird on the responsiveness. But yeah, this is a website we're working on right now. So, it's good to build your client's websites on your own server first. And the reason that we do that is because we collect a deposit and we build the website. And once we're done building the website and we've shown it to them and we go through edits, we ask them to pay the final invoice. And once they do, then we migrate the website to their domain, to their host. And we don't do it before, because if you do, sometimes people will just ghost you, right? You'll transfer it over and then they'll go dark and you just, it sucks. So that would suck. But this is just one extra step as a precaution where you can make sure that, you get paid. Another thing is like, if you go through this process of building a website, they want the website to replace their old site, or if they don't have one, they want one. And so if you use this sequence of delivering the deliverables, this also makes sure that you get paid in a timely manner, right? Like when you're actually done going through the edits and stuff, you can say, okay, we're done. The next step, pay the invoice, and then we will migrate the site. So there is an urgency for them to actually pay the invoice. That's why we get paid like the day of being finished. And it's because they want that thing that we're done moved over for them. So back to going from mock-up to the actual build. So we have the mock-up, and then we will create the domain that we're going to be working on. And, at this point, this is the developer. This is their realm, right? Like you've given them everything they need. You've told them what the project is about. You've given them the discovery form that you've collected. They know the examples that they're looking for. And, maybe whoever sold that website to that client has let the developer know some key specific things that they want to see when it's being built. But you can see how your team can be collaborating here with you and helping out in this process. It's one of those reasons why you see so much discussion going on in this web developer channel with Adriana and Nirav. It's because they're working together. Like she knows what they're looking for, and she's doing the in between, the communication between him and the client, right? So it's good communication in building a remote business is so important. So for those of you that have a small team, small business, in the early days for me, I just did email and Skype to communicate with my teams, a lot of Skype. But then as our teams grew, we got more sophisticated and we started using Slack. So if you're not using Slack yet, there is a free version. All remote millionaires are using Slack to at least communicate with us. So you're already brought up to speed with how to kind of use it. You might want to just create a Slack workspace for your agency, like I have, and start communicating with your team in this way, because Slack is really helpful to like search for old discussions, right? Like if you need to go back, there's a lot of good history there. It's a lot better for sharing files than Skype and other tools out there. But you can see like, these are my companies. Each one of my companies has its own Slack workspace with its own channels. So me being the CEO, when I come in the morning to start my day, I'm drinking my coffee. I will go through each workspace and make sure I put out any fires or answer any questions. And that's kind of like what my day looks like as a CEO. It's really making sure the teams are doing their things. And if there's anything that they need from me, I'm giving it to them. But for most of the time, if I'm in my CEO role, really, I'm just hanging out in Slack. I'm really just hanging out in Slack. So if you're not using it for your agency yet, I do recommend that you do that. So once the developer says, hey, I've got the initial look of the website done, right? It's ready to show the client. What happens is we will let the client know, number 9 here, once all pages are complete, inform the client that the website is ready to review, and we'll do the first round of edits together. And so here's how we do the edits. We set up a Zoom meeting. I don't like to send the client. I don't like to say, hey, your website's done, and just send them the link. I don't like to give them that opportunity to look at it by themselves, because in this stage, we might be using placeholder content. We might be using images that they don't know why we're using them or whatever. I want to be there to handle any of their objections or expectations when they look at the website for the very first time. And to me, that's very important, right? Because you could send them a link on their own time to go look at the website, and they're going to be like, what the hell is this? Why that? This looks like shit. I don't like this. But if you're not there to say, oh, well, the reason this is that way is because of this, because you asked this, we can change that. It's a lot different if you're hearing their concerns, you're responding to them, and then you're taking notes to give to your developer to fix those things, right? So that's why I don't like to just send the link, even though it's tempting. You want to say, hey, it's done. It looks great. You should take a look at it right now. But that's just a big mistake that I learned to not do. So what we will do is we'll send an email and say, hey, the website is ready for our initial look. Can we get on a Zoom on a certain day and then have a look at it? And what we will do, or what our either project manager or my assistant will do, is she'll set up the call, she'll get on it with them, she'll pull up the actual website on Zoom and go through it page by page. So the homepage, the next page, the next page, the next page. And then she will take notes in a Word document or an Evernote. And then she will send that to our developer. And it's funny because all of this is mentioned here in this SOP, but I'm just riffing off of, like, I know the process, I know how it goes, and this is exactly what I'm saying. So it's funny to see that, you know, all the stages have been added through this SOP in the way that we do things, because when we built all these SOPs, this was the process, right? Making these very detailed notes on every stage of building a website and putting it in an SOP in a way that somebody could understand and pick up and do this. So they'll get on the Zoom call, they'll take notes of the client feedback, share the feedback with the developer so they can implement and edit any necessary changes. After the initial round of edits is complete, we'll let them know. We'll say, hey, our initial round of edits is complete. And at this point, they've already seen the website, right? They already know. So you can send them a link and say, have a look. If it looks good, we'll finish. If you have anything else that you want to change, let me know. We can hop on another call, or you can text me, right? Generally, we get it pretty correct off of the initial round. It's important for your initial round of edits that you're detailed, right? You go through each page, start at the top, scroll to the bottom, listen to their feedback, ask them, you know, what, well, I listen a lot. At this point, I listen to their feedback. I don't make a lot of suggestions unless they have concerns, and then I give them my feedback, because again, I could be building a project for somebody that I don't really like to design for, but they do. So you have to listen to their concern and respond. But we usually get it right pretty quickly. Initial round, the second round of edits is usually very minimal. It's usually very minimal. And so the second round happens, we take additional feedback. And once we get through that second round of edits, we'll show it to them again. If they're happy, we'll say, great, let's take care of the final invoice, and then we'll migrate. We'll migrate to your domain. So that's where we are, right? Sending the client the final invoice, remaining of the 1/3 that is left. Because remember, we collect 2/3 deposit to start, and then we inform the developer of the final rounds, make sure that they implement everything, no details are missed, and then proceed to the next step when the final invoice is collected. And then this is just the migration process, right? They're going to move the website from wherever it is hosted, like this one, creativestaging.com. They're going to move it to your client website.com. And so we already have all their information, right? We've already collected at the beginning, their hosting account, their domain, their registrar. So we just give that to the developer and he handles the rest. You know, these are some things that we check, right? If they have some existing emails going on, like they have nick@nickponte.com, we want to make sure that when they're moving, the developers moving the website, that we're not messing with any of that in their DNS, right? So these are all just little things. Once the website is live, we want to make sure that blocking robots is not active, so Google can crawl the website. Sometimes you'll build a website and you haven't allowed Google to actually crawl the website, and you'll be wondering why this new website isn't even showing up in Google. This is usually the reason. So just having this here in our SOP is just another way to have the quality control from our web developer, right? Our web developer has this SOP. He knows that this is the process. So when he's migrating, he's doing these steps. He's checking these things off, right? So another thing that we do is we test the contact form and make sure it's sent to the right client email address. So whenever you set up a website, you have to specify which email the contact form submissions are going to. And sometimes this is overlooked. We want to make sure that if we have a new website live, that client is getting their contact form submissions, right? Once the website is live, set client's email address as the main admin. So we're creating their access, their account, and we're sending it over to them. And at that point, the website is live. They have access. The project is pretty much done. We've already been paid. So that's pretty much that. This is the asset portion that I outlined at the beginning. What we're going to need, anything you need to get the job done, login information, logo. This is just a list, the logo, colors, stuff like that. These are all the ways that you will know the different stages of this SOP is complete, right? Client reviewed and approved the mockup. Client approved the website layout. First and final round of edits are done. Agency collected both invoices and the website is successfully migrated to the server. So, just reviewing everything that I've shared now, like these are the milestones of the individual pieces. And once you have these 4 milestones, you're done. You're done. These are the people that are involved in this SOP: project manager, outsourcer, web developer. When we bring somebody in, we start it immediately after the onboarding process. Remember, the onboarding process has the invoice being paid. That's the first step. So nothing starts until then. The due date for our websites. What we do is when we bring on a new website client, sometimes they'll ask you, how long is it going to take? And what you don't want to do is set the pressure on yourself to be very short, right? You want to have give yourself some wiggle room, right? So if you say it's going to take 2 months and then you come in and do it in 3 weeks, they're going to be very happy with you. But if you say it's going to be 3 weeks and it takes you 2 months, they're going to be very upset with you. So it's important to manage their expectation well from the beginning. So give yourself some wiggle room. If you've brought in somebody to help you build these websites, you've probably given them a test project like we've instructed you. And that test project took them 2 hours to do or a week to do. And so you have an idea of how long your website developer will take. And so what you want to do is set the expectation a little further out from that. So if the test project came in at like 1 week, tell the client it's 3 weeks. And that way, when you come in early, they're happy. If you tell them it's 3 weeks in the beginning, they're going to be fine with that. And then if you come in and finish it at 1 week, they're going to be extremely happy. I always talk about under promising and over delivering. And the way that you do that with digital marketing and clients is you give yourself a lot of wiggle room to deliver on the project. If somebody's going to hire you to build them a website, they're probably going to be fine with it taking 1 to 2 months, to be completely honest. Like there should be no problem with that. But we know that we build them very quick. So we set the expectation 3 to 4 weeks, and then we come in and it's done within a couple weeks. So that's a very important piece. You letting them know what to expect. And these are the different ways that you can track the progress, right? You're engaging your developer. When you give them the initial project, you ask them how long do they think it will take, and that way you take that time frame and then add a couple weeks to it, and then let the client know. That's also a great way to do it too. And so these are just pieces for your project manager to know that they're doing a good job, tracking their progress and all that stuff. So let's see. Anybody have any questions? I know I just kind of like jammed through that, but that was kind of the goal there. Let me stop sharing for a second.